Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's July 16th, 2022 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Housing Subcommittee will be conducted via remote participation. Specific information and get general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend in the meeting. This is virtually. For those who wish to do so remotely, may follow the instructions. For those who are not able to attend in person, every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of the open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of such recordings. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. So this is being recorded by the town of Great Barrington. We have, right now we have 5 attendees, and there might be members of the press that might be recording. So, as I said earlier, Garfield extends his apologies. He won't be able to make tonight's meeting. So first we'll call roll call. Jeremy?
Here.
Malcolm?
Here.
And I am here. So we'll move into the approval of the minutes of January 10th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, so I read the minutes, but I did not attend the meeting. Well, yeah, I did not attend the meeting. So I think I can still vote on them, to approve them. But anyways,
I believe so. Okay, so Malcolm, did you have any discussions or notes? I know you took them, so.
No, they're perfect.
All righty. So a motion to accept the minutes.
Oh, roll call. Are we doing roll call?
Yeah. Jeremy.
Aye.
Malcolm.
Aye.
And myself. Okay, so the minutes of January 10th are approved and accepted. So subcommittees, announcements and statements. So I was hoping to just open up to the floor to the you all and just let me know kind of what's happening, especially on the planning board. I haven't really been able to join, so I'm curious where you guys are and what's happening in terms of housing.
We are looking at several things for this year's town meeting. And hang on one second, I have to find the agenda. I thought I had it up. Let's see. One of the things we're looking at, which we're still really in discussion on, is the whole Stockbridge Road rezoning. I mean, the idea there is that Stockbridge Road is a typical commercial corridor, and it's a good spot to envision housing, because it's an area that's served by water and sewer and utilities. So we're looking at ways to encourage housing development on Stockbridge Road. but at the same time, look at ways of improving the corridor as as an amenable place in town. So that's part of what we're doing, and one of the things we're going to be covering this week. And I will. Where the heck is my? Oh, there it is. Yes, thanks.
That's the one that we'll see if we get it done in time for this.
Yeah,
year's town
the other
meeting.
ones, that one still has a bit of work to do. The ones that we're pretty much committed to presenting to town meeting, or at least having the public hearing and sending it to the select board, is basically there's a couple things that are really housekeeping, like we're using the word like 2-family, 3-family. We're proposing to change that to 2-unit, 3-unit, because it may not be family in a unit. We want to change the definition of multifamily from 3 or more to 4 or more, so that the 3 units would come into regulations as a similar to 2-family, where that's by right. We're looking at strengthening performance standards in design standards and performance standards, so that we can move away from the use of site plan review. So people can do more by right without site plan review. Site plan review is expensive. It requires engineers, to present to the planning board, and also it slows down projects. As long as we have a robust set of performance standards that the building inspector could go to, we don't have to ask people about lighting. We don't have to ask people about parking. We don't have to ask people about the things that we do during site plan review. So we're looking at that. We're looking at, of course, I mentioned Stockbridge Road, and I think that's pretty much it in terms of what we're looking at as far as the zoning amendments for this year. They're all focused on housing.
And it's the Stockbridge Road stuff is it's trying to get like some kind of bonuses for creating housing or affordable housing. And so it's meaning they can build more if they, and then the performance standards is just to try to like remove some of the limits that we've heard prevents or may prevent developers from proposing a project or whatever, or anyway. So there are all kinds of things to how to increase housing, not just affordable housing, but just housing in general. The idea being, if you have more housing, it takes some of the pressure off of some of the more affordable housing that's already there.
Okay, that's great. So on Stockbridge Road, will you be like increasing the density, like the height?
Well, the
Rezoning?
proposal is to allow increase in height, which means increase in density if there's 20% affordable housing as part of the project.
Oh, okay. So
Underlying zone.
just for that area. So it's kind of inclusionary zoning, or they have to have a certain percentage? Am I saying that right?
No, they don't. To get, it's just they get the bonus if.
Oh, they get bonus. Okay, gotcha.
They get the density, the increase in what they can do.
Gotcha.
Is
okay.
And then there's some other things like with right, Malcolm, with the mixed use, that's still in there, right? So if they some of the things that we wanted to encourage, so what was it? Things like, was it daycare,
senior, those also.
Senior, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Get you.
I look forward to hearing more of this, hopefully.
Yeah.
Move forward. Are you, just one last question, are you working with any landowners currently that have?
So that's part of where we're at. We want to do, so especially if this goes through, but I think in general anyway, we want to do like a non town hall like reach out meeting.
Oh, okay.
And our newest member is going to spearhead that.
Okay.
I got a question. I'm not sure whether the Stockbridge Road thing is going to be ready for this year, but
Yeah.
we're gonna try.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
We
It's a-
don't want to just throw something out there. This has. to
Yeah,
happen all the
yeah.
time.
It's a big lift for sure. And I guess, that's coming back to the housing subcommittee. That's why, I'm anxious to try to get, at least a few things put in front of the select board in the town if we can, just to move things
Yes.
along and, find the lowest hanging fruit and work.
But I think
So,
a lot of the things that it seems like from the list, a lot of things that the committee may want to propose are more of the long
Long
things
vision,
anyway. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, at least it's starting, starting the ball rolling.
Because there is a lot of this that's already just happening by
Mhm.
either staff or
Yeah.
other committees.
Yeah. And, we just to, as Malcolm pointed out earlier, I mean, we are a volunteer group and we can only do so much. And, it would be wonderful to get some help, but, we're doing the best we can, and at least, trying to flag what's out there and some of the possibilities. And, if it turns out that there is money or there's a desire to hire someone specifically for housing, that would be probably very welcome. So what I wanted to do is highlight a couple items actually one item for this meeting on the housing plan worksheet. Originally, I was hoping to kind of have a little mini presentation of what might go in front of the select board if this committee wants it to. So what I'm looking at is showing you a brief PowerPoint on item number 24 of the housing worksheet, which I'll share with the on the screen right now just to refresh our memories.
Mhm.
Go through that PowerPoint, try to get some kind of a in-depth discussion, and then have a general feeling, this is something that we want to bring up. And I have us penciled in for a meeting with the select board on Monday, February 13th at 6 p.m. to bring any of our recommendations to the select board to try to get in there. It doesn't mean that these will be the only things that go in front of the select board, but at least we have the ball rolling on a couple. So what I will do is I'll share my screen and I'll start with the worksheet just so we can kind of remind ourselves where we're at. I haven't done an awful lot of work on the worksheet because obviously it's something we're all working together. But I did try to clean up a little bit. So let me, let's see. Okay, so we don't want this. It should come with a driving test or something.
Yeah.
Can you see what I'm seeing?
Sorry,
Well,
I
it's
keep
a
moving
big
my
document,
phone.
but-
I won't dwell in this, but I just wanted to kind of, bring us back to where this all began. And, this, just to remind anyone that's joining us for the first time, this was just an attempt to start to gather all the information we have, all the different housing strategies, all the proposals, programs, anything that any of us have heard about or wanted to bring up. So,
The only thing that's showing here is the.
I think you got the
minutes.
agenda, right?
Yeah,
Or
the
is it
minutes.
the
Oh.
minutes?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
So you have to change your share there.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I guess I have to get out, right? And do it again.
You can stop the share and start it again. Or you can change it, which I always find difficult.
Okay. So new share.
There you go.
How's that?
Better. More
Okay.
appropriate.
I'm glad you told me. Was I showing something horrible?
No, it was just the minutes.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was great.
You have to warn me if something comes up. Yeah, so this is the housing plan worksheet. As you know, we've been using this for, a few months now, and we are at the point that I would like to start focusing on a couple things. And with your permission, I'd like to start with number 24, which is highlighted, tax exemption for owners of affordable year-round rental housing. So before I start with the presentation or the draft presentation, does anyone have any points to make about the kind of general worksheet or how things are going? Are you finding this useful as a kind of a touch point just to start discussions?
Yes. I started to take a shot, and I'd like to share this at the next meeting.
Yeah.
In terms of, when we're moving towards a position here where we're coming up with a list of things that need to be done, and we have to identify those people who would be assigned to do them within the town, if in fact they will get done.
Yeah.
And I think we should, I would like maybe the committee on the next meeting to take a shot at that, and I might be in a position to present something that my
Great.
ideas that we could look at.
Super.
Some of the things, many of the things, I did a preliminary look at these things, and many of the items here on our spreadsheet really required town staff to do them.
Yep.
I mean, it's not really something that can be done by volunteers, long-term assignment of matching landlords and tenants, or keeping an inventory of what properties are available in the town, or, that kind of thing. But they are something that might be done by a staff if we hired a housing expert.
Yeah.
And I think it might be worth our while to put all these things together and say, okay, here are all the things we could do if the town hired a housing staff person.
Yeah.
And if the weight of that list is such that it's worthwhile then to do that, then maybe that's something that could be done. Otherwise, just saying we should hire somebody isn't going to get it done. We actually have to say, if we hire somebody, here's what that person could do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it comes down to money as well. So, where are we going to come up with
Sometimes
money?
over there in Devorah's stuff, either in the white drawers.
I'll wait till Jeremy. So the proposal that we'll discuss next week, which is a real estate transfer fee proposal, that generates some income or revenue, I should say, not income. So potentially, some of the thing is, okay, if we're posing hiring, another staff member just to focus on housing, where's that money going to come from? So ideally, if we have one of these strategies that say, hey, this strategy will generate revenue to pay for, part of the staff member. I mean, that's not necessary. Obviously, there's other ways to come up with revenue, but at least we can kind of build in something and say, okay, well, this is one way to do so. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Malcolm. Thank you for that. What we could do is I've just been sharing kind of PDFs, but obviously Malcolm and Jeremy, if you guys want to have the and I know I shared an earlier version just of it's done in Google Sheets. So, you can just work off that, and I can update the master if you want, just so we're not all working on it together. So just remind me. Okay, so great. So what I'm going to do is, Jeremy, did you have any thoughts before I move into?
No, no, just what Malcolm said, because there are staff. Staff is already working on some of these.
Yeah.
And there's beyond what's here too. There's definitely some things that, like, just right off the bat, or that some sort of housing staff person could do.
Yeah.
You know, like this meeting, it's just volunteers. And so if they're, you know, if that person was present at these meetings, the trust meetings, you know, things like that would be super helpful.
Yeah.
Kind of in the, like, the role that Chris has in the meetings that he attended. Well, in planning board, you know, it's a large role. And so that could be really helpful.
Yeah. And it's great. I was at the Massachusetts Municipal Association annual meeting this weekend, and Governor Healy was speaking, and it's great that she is, you know, dividing up the Department of Community Development and Housing, or Housing and Community Development. So she's going to have a separate housing secretary. So that's going to be really powerful. And she seems very, very focused on housing. So I think that's going to be very helpful too. A lot of
Malcolm, did you look at that thing that we got around about what Governor Hochul in New York is doing around housing?
You know, I didn't get a chance to look at that very.
Yeah, I mean, that is like, whoa.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting. Anyway.
Okay.
But maybe we could share that with you too.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting. I mean, I don't, you know, I mean, I don't, we can at best send something to Governor Healy, but say, hey, look what they're doing in New York.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a regional issue. Obviously, you know, it's a national issue, worldwide issue.
Yeah.
If we kind of keep shrinking it down, and, you know, Governor Healy's already been to the Berkshires twice in 2 weeks. So I think we have an ear there. And, you know, once the Department of Housing is set up, I think, you know, if we could all rally around some kind of regional plan, I think we'll be in a good place. Okay, so let me, I'm going to try to reshare this little draft and walk you guys through this. This is just again, to get us started. All right. I can either put this in, let's see, slideshow. Okay. So, you know, I just kind of put together a paragraph, and this is something just to get us, you know, talking. So if there's something huge, like, oh, you know, we don't want the slide or whatever, just let me know. I can run through this, and obviously, if you have notes, you can kind of send it to me. The idea really is to go through this one proposal, get a sense of what you're thinking about it. Is it something that we want to bring to the select board? And in terms of the presentation, what the thought was, anything that we bring to the select board on February 13th would be in a form of a small presentation such as this. This is pretty long. I kind of added a lot of stuff here just to give you guys as much information as I could. But the idea is to, you know, maybe have a short PowerPoint and just have a one sheet executive summary, basically just saying, you know, the background, you know, the main points of this proposal, and to go from there. I see one hand raised. James, can we wait? Is it something you can wait with? Because I'm going to have to stop my share. Let me just see. I'm not too good on that. Like letting people talk and sharing at the same time. So I think, let's see.
Okay, hands down.
I might have to just wait. Oh, did the hand go down?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just because I am not very good at doing it, multitasking, I'm gonna just ask everyone to wait until we finish. And okay. So I'm still sharing, right?
You are?
Okay.
Is it coming up or is it loading?
I am gonna start now.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Can you see it now?
She had reduced it so that.
Yeah, I reduced it because I was trying to answer. Okay, I'm not gonna do that again.
I mean, I have it, I'm sitting at someone's desk, so I have it up on,
Oh,
I
okay.
have them on
Uh,
2 different screens. It's
Okay.
awesome.
So cool. So I'll just read this. Great Barrington is grappling with a housing crisis that adversely affects our community's sustainability, social identity, workforce, and quality of life. Higher income buyers are displacing longtime residents, and demand for affordable housing far outstrips supply. So this is just kind of to set the stage. And you know, we can wordsmith later on as we go, or if there's something huge, you can let me know. Now let's see if I can, oops, okay. Okay, proposal 1. I just numbered it just so we can know where we are. Again, this is number 24 on our housing plan worksheet. Tax exemption for owners of affordable year-round rental housing. Strategy: increase affordable long-term rental housing inventory by incentivizing property owners. Property owners who provide affordable housing are exempt from paying property tax on the portion of their property being rented at or below the affordable rates to income eligible households. This is for long-term rentals only. To be eligible for exemption, the housing unit must be leased for the entire fiscal year. So we're looking at 12-month leases only. Low-income renters only. To be eligible for exemption, the housing unit must be leased to a low-income person at rents not to exceed HUD limits for low-income households, which is 80% or under AMI. Rents assume that the landlord pays all utilities. An allowance for any utilities paid by tenants must be deducted from these rents. The exemption is granted by the principal assessor, on a year-to-year basis. If a property qualifies for that year, an exemption is granted. No deed restrictions are required. Exemption examples. This is one example. An owner of a duplex lives in one unit and rents out the other unit of equal size to income-eligible household. Without this exemption, the property owner would have a tax burden of $6,000. If leased for the full fiscal year, the owner could apply for a property tax exemption, and if granted, would pay property tax for the year of only $3,000 or half the full tax burden. Therefore, this affordable housing exemption would save the owner $3,000 in real estate taxes. This is a little bit of background. Let's see, I think, oops. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know. Oh yeah, oh, I can go backwards. Okay, case study. So this is Provincetown. So Provincetown has this enacted, this exemption enacted. This is to give you a background on how they came about to have this program. A 2002 special town meeting, Provincetown voters approved STM Article 9 to submit a home rule petition for special state legislation allowing the town to offer a property tax exemption. This town meeting article was introduced to the state legislature as Senate Bill number 2325. Following enactment by the House and Senate, the bill was placed before the governor for signature on December 9th, 2002, to become law. On December 19th, acting Governor Jane Swift signed the bill into law. So that actually moved very, very quickly.
It's impressive how quickly that moves.
Yeah. So that was, I don't think that's the usual. So
that's why it was Jane Swift.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So this is an example. Their application is 5 pages long, but this is just to give you an example of what their application looks like. I'll share with you a link as well, but this is to give you a sense. You list the rental information, the household income, etc. And it goes through the assessor's office. Again, this is kind of an excerpt of their application. As I mentioned, for year-round rental properties only. And it gives some insight into it. This is interesting, their HUD is slightly different in terms of their AMI because they're on Cape Cod, but it's fairly close. So what it does, it sets the, the limits for 80% AMI. I think the next slide, I'll show you what Great Barrington is, or later on. And then it shows you what the low income rent limits are, how, what that equals. So if we were to enact this, we would make sure it was very easy for landlords to know how much they could charge. So it wasn't kind of a gray area. So it's very, very clearly defined. Each year, the application changes to update the limits, which is nice. So I did kind of a deeper dive just to see how it works with the assessor. And this is an example of how they handle, calculating properties that would fall under this program. So not to go too much in the weeds, but you can see how they would take a square footage of a typical property. They would see what portion, in terms of square footage, what qualifies under this affordable housing exemption. So in this case, you can see 360 feet of the property qualifies. And then they bring it down to a percentage. So they, they split the property up between a non-qualifying portion of the property and a qualifying. And they come out to the 100%. And then with some math that's built in, the assessor can quickly come to a determination on how much the property owner would be saving or not paying in their property tax. So, once the formula is put in, it's pretty straightforward. I found this interesting. This is some of the historical data on the take-up of theirs. As I mentioned, it was signed by the governor in 2002. So once it got going, you can see how it's possible to really get a sense on, how much tax is being, I guess, lost, you could say, to the town through this exemption, or, how much tax is being saved by property owners, whichever way you want to look at it. And you can see the change per year. So this is very helpful to forecast the potential revenue that is not going to be hitting the book, so to speak, for the town. So I thought this was really, really helpful in terms of, doing some forecasting, looking at, some possibilities. Obviously, we would have no idea really how much take-up would be involved, but I think tracking and data is always very helpful. And I was very pleased to see how this works in Provincetown. So this is, I mentioned, the Great Barrington area median income. So I went on to the HUD site and looked at where the 80% AMI is. I'm not sure if this is 2022, I can't remember, but the 100% area median income, you can see how that breaks down to Great Barrington. And then when you do your math, the 80%. So ideally, what you would do is similar to the Provincetown application, you would break that down further into rents. So whether it was efficiency or a, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, etc., it would be made very clear to property owners what the limits are in terms of the rent that they could charge.
So,
yeah. Do you want to? I can.
So they're.
Oh yeah.
So they're equating. How are they equating this? I didn't do the math, but are they equating size to people? Because AMI is all about income and people, and their thing has to do with size, which is usually it's not quite how it works.
No, so the AMI is related to the renters. So
no, I get that, but I think they're equating. Are they equating one person to?
Yeah, I think it's,
I think they're equating somehow bedrooms to people, which is so it's not quite accurate. Well, in a sense, it's not quite accurate, right?
Well, I guess, we would have to kind of do a deeper dive, but if it's, let's say a granny flat or ADU or something, we would have a sense, is it for one person or two people?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I had some notes that I took when I went
Yeah.
through this.
well, I can, should I go through the whole thing? And
Yeah,
then we
yeah,
can-
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let me go back. Pros and cons. Okay, pro. And I just, I just
think-
picked a couple. So I didn't go too far into it. I just kind of highlighted a couple one. So this allows for a small scale scattered sites approach to housing versus grouping low income renters in dense housing development. So, it's always beneficial to have, a mix income through the town. And one of, the beauty in this is that this is allowing for, low income renters to be in neighborhoods and to be scattered through our community. So you're not necessarily just grouping them into, larger housing developments. So that's, a real pro, I think, to have everyone kind of mixed in. That's the scattered sites approach. Another pro is that it offers a significant cost saving alternative to building new housing. And I did a back of the napkin calculation. So let me kind of walk you through this. This is by no means, don't hold me to this, but it gives a sense of where I'm going with this. So creating a new unit of housing can cost the town between $250,000 to $350,000 per unit. So that's, and I'll show you in the next slide the historical reference for that. Versus $1,000 to $4,000 per unit per year cost. So if you think that, we were going to either build or repurpose a unit, when you talk to contractors, you get a sense of, what is the construction cost? And that, what I'm hearing, it ranges depending on the finishes, anywhere from 250 square feet up to, 750 square feet for, for high end finishes. So around 350 square feet generally seems to be where we are now. Obviously, supply issues and the cost of lumber and various things are changing it day in and day out. But just, as an average, let's say 300 square feet construction cost, times a 900 square foot unit could come out to around $300,000 to build. Now, this is just, rough math, but what it shows you is, if the town were to, want to build new units or to start repurposing, it is quite costly. We're looking at least probably for $250,000. And to give you some historic reference, again, this is just real general, and there's obviously, you have a scale issue in terms of some of these bigger projects. And so Housatonic School, for instance, roughly it's a $3.5 million budget. We're getting 10 units of affordable housing for that. Roughly it comes out to $350,000 a unit. And these are 1,200 square foot, 2-bedroom apartments. So obviously, there's common area, et cetera, but that's basically, to come out with that is roughly $350,000 a unit for 10 units. Then another reference I used was 343 Main Street, which is the former BCC campus. Allender Construction, Ian Rash approached the CPC and was looking for a 1-bedroom apartment in return for $250,000 from CPA funds. So that gives you, a sense of, a developer potentially saying, okay, well, in return for this, I'm going to give you this. So this is a good example of, $250,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment. And in his proposal, he had an 80% AMI with a 20-year deed restriction. Then you look at Bentley, which was a budget of $18 million, 45 units. That was coming around $400,000 a unit. Windrush budget of $19 million for 49 units. So we're looking at $388 a unit. And Forest Springs, which was in 2017, so it was a few years ago, but the budget was $3 million for 11 units, and that came in at $273,000. So that just kind of gives you a sense of where, what we're looking for. And if you think about the money that, for someone getting a tax break, and maybe sure they might get $2,000 or $3,000 tax break a year, the alternative is the town coughing up $250,000 a unit to build or repurpose housing. So that's kind of a little look at, why I think this is a good deal for the town. Now, obviously, we don't know who's going to take this up, but for those that might say, hey, we need this revenue, my answer is, well, we really need affordable housing. And, this is actually a really good deal if people can do this. It brings families into the neighborhood. Cons that requires a multi-step process. So this is not easy. It's not that it's not easy. It takes a little bit. So first town meeting is approval is needed. So obviously this would, go to the select board. The select board would decide to put this on the warrant. It would go for town meeting approval. If it's approved, then it would go to our representatives, and this home rule petition would be filed in the state legislature. Historically, home rule petitions have stalled in the legislature, so you go through various committees, and then the exemption can only be adopted if the legislature approves it and the governor signs it. So, it's not guaranteed, and it could take a couple of years. And one of the reasons why I'm talking about this now is, if we can get this on the books and get it to town meeting and get it approved, at least we've begun the process. So knowing that this could take a couple of years. Sorry. Yeah. I think that's kind of in a nutshell. But I think for some reason I felt like there was one other thing, but yes.
Thank you.
So
Thanks, Lee. This is really good. The question I had is what you're sending, like how specific is this home rule process? Does it have to be all the way into the weeds with this, or do they approve, or if we sent something that was more general to so that's what I'm asking for Provincetown. Was it the specific thing that they're doing is what they sent, or did they send something more general than what they're doing?
Yeah, it's pretty specific. So you write down all the conditions and the restrictions.
Yeah.
And,
so then
I do have examples. I won't share right now, but I do have their home rule petition. And I don't know if I made, I feel like I skipped maybe the slide, but this is not the residential exemption. So this is a completely standalone proposal. It doesn't shift the tax burden, doesn't increase taxes. So I think
that I don't know about, because it does in a sense shift the tax burden a little by that little amount, right? So I don't know if that necessarily should be part of the presentation, because it does. So if someone's paying $3,000 less in taxes, and that $3,000 has to be picked up by someone else, meaning the rest of the town. But I don't know if that's necessarily not a reason to do it. And then also in the comparing of what it costs to create units. So then if we're going to do that, then we should be also comparing it by what the town's already done in the form of CPA grants. And if you compare it to those, then this doesn't necessarily sound cheap. I think the sell is that you have all of that going on, and this helps you to get more housing. And I think the sell is that we have a crisis, and we need more housing. And so the more things that we can have to generate housing and affordable housing, the better. And so, I mean, I think that more than comparing it, the whole creation thing, I mean, I think the town is a little bit far away from that. I mean, I think the closest of the town is probably to that. Well, I mean, and usually it's partnering with other people that, are doing some of the heavy lifting, or we're getting, other money, which is part of the heavy lifting, and it doesn't come down to taxpayers. I mean, I think it's really good, but I think, I don't know if, I don't think the cell should be, I think the cell should be realistic. Like this, I think the cell is, we need housing. This is just another tool that the town can have at its disposal.
Yep.
To be able to use to create housing.
Yeah.
The thing I'm a little concerned about this is, so Provincetown is very densely populated with very little land. And so housing is sort of like, the houses is sort of the property, but and maybe like in the center of town where probably this is going to happen anyways, it's a similar situation. But if you were to get out into some of the other properties that have a lot of other things besides the house on it, like let's say they had 86 acres, as part of their tax burden, they have a swimming pool, they have a tennis court, they have this and that and the other thing, horse stables or whatever. And then they're renting out half of their house for 80% of AMI, and they're only paying half of their real estate tax, and so I think there needs to be a little bit of judging in this, and that it can't just straight be based on square footage of housing. Also with the year-round thing, I don't know, I think it's a limiting thing, and I think I like the differentiation between short-term and long-term, but I don't know, especially with affordable housing. I mean, it's nice to have that stability, but sometimes the people that don't have that stability and they need to move or change or whatever. And if the property owner is, to me, it's like, we could structure it in a way, like two different ways. Like if they're able to get another tenant in there and continue the affordability, then, even if it continues to be a unit that's affordable, then great. If let's say they do 6 months only, and then they're not able to find another, I mean, then, I think you can do it almost by the month in terms of like what their assessment would be. Just so I don't want to like limit it so well. I wouldn't like to see it limited so much that we're forced into that. I mean, ideally that's great because it provides stability for the tenant. But it might, you might get landlord, property owners that sort of like get gypped out of it. Like, the lease gets broken at 11 months, and then they get nothing,
Yeah.
and so.
Yeah, and I definitely, just to interject, I think this is all what would come out. Like, let's say, this comes out of our committee and it goes to the select board. I mean, there's going to be public forum. So all the nitty gritty, we're going to have Ross, speak up and make sure this is something that he can do. So yeah, I think all these are very, very valid points. And this draft was not something I'm gonna,
No. I get that. No, I get that. I'm not. I think the work is great, and I think you're exactly right. Like that's all going to come out in the thing. The other thing about this is just the AMI part. So it's like you hit the 80% threshold, and boom, you get all of the incentive. But when you look at the incomes, especially when it goes to a one person, it's a high bar for like a person in terms of what their hourly rate or hourly income would be. And so, like if there's a way to also build in like tiering to this. So, if you hit that 80%, AMI, then it's this. If you get down to 70, it's this. If you get down to, 60, it's this, and so forth. Because, I mean, as a landlord, there are landlords that are, of course, just going to be like, yeah, I just want to help the person. But then there's going to be landlords that like, well, no, I want to get that 80% rent. And so, there's not really an incentive to, I mean, at least it seems like there's not an incentive to offer rent at 60% of AMI. And with how it is at the moment. So those were the things that I had just written
Great.
down when I went through it.
Yeah, that's
earlier.
very helpful.
Okay, I got a couple comments.
Yep.
I think it's a good presentation. Leah you outline what the proposal is and what needs to be done. I had a problem with it when you switched over though to the cost of building housing, because I don't think that really is applies here. I mean, you've listed all these things that cost a lot of money per unit, but in fact, the town has not really spent that money. The town has not spent.
I guess it was kind of, if we need more housing,
Yeah,
how
but
we
what
can get
you,
more housing.
in your slide, you said it can cost the town
Mm,
between 250 and 350,000 per unit. Well, the town isn't going to spend that. We have outside, Construct and BC and Berkshire Housing and CDC, Southern Berkshires. They're the ones spending the money, and we're spending some CPA money to help with those. But
Cost, yep.
it's really third parties that are spending these, and I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess,
no, it didn't ring right.
that
when
is,
you-
yeah. I guess
when
I
you
was
hit
thinking
that-
about, oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you hit that portion of the presentation, it
It gets a bit,
didn't ring right. It didn't flow right.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, because
Yeah.
all of a sudden you switch from, okay, here's why we should do this tax subsidy to here's how much it costs if we don't.
yeah, I agree. I kind of got in the weeds there, and this section wasn't really something I was gonna bring forward. It was kind of discussion for us. But yeah, I agree.
I did send, we talked about this either last meeting or the meeting before. Chris Rembold had sent us us meaning the planning board, a spreadsheet where he outlined he did all these affordability calculations based on AMI. What is the monthly income? What would be the monthly rent at 30% for one person, two person, three person, four person, so on, and compare that with the market rate.
Oh, good. Sorry.
So, for example, at 80% of AMI, for two people, the rent would be $14.74
Yep.
a month. He has estimated that the market rate is $1,800 a month for two people, for 600 square feet. That is, so that means there's probably about $325 a month in rent that the landlord is going to have to eat if he went out and rented it at market rate. Which adds up to about $3,900 a year. I think that's the kind of calculation we're going to have to do to find out whether this is really going to be attractive to people.
Okay.
And of course, part of that is what's the annual tax bill for someone at this size, and there's no uniformity there either. But I do think this is a good presentation, and I think. It outlines the proposal very well, and I think it describes it very well, and I think we should think about doing this for some of the other things as well.
And Malcolm, with the when Chris did that calculation too, and then Ian came back and like his presentation, like his numbers were different than that. And and then when I asked Chris about it, it was like, I mean, he was saying that, well, Ian knows what he can get. And so, I mean, I think all of that, it's still going to just be, it's going to depend on the market. And one of the things that in that one, like Hochul's proposal, or actually what Governor Hochul in New York is going to do, there was a bunch of information in there, and this is of course New York, not Massachusetts, but it was talking about like city versus upstate, and what the amount that for how much housing has gone up in price, like the percentage it's gone up in price to own, and then the rentals, the percentages that the rentals have gone up in a time period. And it was really shocking how much those things are. And I think that was one of the things when Chris did that, and when we were looking at a lot of these kinds of calculations, it's just it's hard because because the market is kind of going all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what market rate is.
Yeah.
Looking at it every day.
Yeah, and this is a good example of, really needing, or, it would be very useful to have someone step in and say, okay, here's the fair market rents. This is the calculation. I mean, I'm kind of, even with my construction costs, I'm kind of, just throwing a lot of numbers and seeing if they stick. But at this point, it would be good to have something, solid, and say, okay, well, this is the HUD, fair market rents for, 2023, and be, sure in that, during that presentation. So. Yeah.
And this is the kind of thing that like a housing staff person could do, right? So if some person comes to the town and, I have this large house and I'm thinking of renovating it to do whatever, or, this might be slightly different than that, but then that person can walk them through all of these options. Like, you could go to maybe CPA and try to get some funds and to create this for a permanent restriction or whatever, or you could go for this tax thing, or, this or that. And so a lot of this, I think the presentation itself will be the sell for the other, because all of this is like, it's like will become super clear for us, but will still be super confusing for a lot of people in town. And, if there's a person that, of course, Chris can explain these things, but does Chris have any time to do this sort of thing? It's, he's already so busy. And, I think this is like the perfect kind of thing for that position. It's like a person that you can go to as as an individual, not only as a developer, but as an individual, and like, hey, I want to do something to try to help this housing crisis, or I just want to do something to help myself, and what's out there in the town.
It definitely takes a lot. I mean, Ross, fair play to him. He really helps me a lot with this, and went back and forth. And, I'm always mindful of the staff's time, even just preparing something like this. Am I on the right track? Do we have, other data that we can get from other municipalities? Just to let you know, the town of Wellfleet has this as well. And in, let's see, there's a town, and Salem. Salem has an interesting one that's similar. It's they have a piece of legislature. It's an act relative to property exemptions for ADUs. So they have a slightly different, but I couldn't find a lot of, I didn't spend many weeks looking for it, but I didn't see a lot of municipalities that did this. So, Provincetown rose to the top, followed by Wellfleet, and then Salem. But, there's probably others, but I was trying to stick to Massachusetts. So I guess the question is, if, you have a PDF of this, and this was just, again, a draft, and I gave you more information that I would intend to use in a presentation to the select board. But if you could come back with notes and, just say, hey, maybe on this slide, we don't need it. I totally hear you about the construction costs. I think that's a great point. I guess one of my, and we probably don't even have to make this argument, why is this needed? Obviously, we need more affordable housing. So if we don't have the money to build it, then we, incentivize. And how do we, why is incentivizing a good path? And so I was trying to make the case saying, waiting for someone to build, a unit, or a developer to say, hey, I'll build these 10 units, but I'll make one affordable for $250,000. So I'm trying to just show,
Yeah.
the choices. We don't really have a lot of choices. We either have the money to build, or we rely on nonprofits or developers, or we repurpose. So yes, this is like one prong of a multi-prong strategy, but so maybe I don't have to be so heavy-handed saying why this is a good thing. I mean, for me, it seems like an obvious proposal to at least pursue and then bring to a public forum. That's probably why I started with it.
Lee, the shortcoming of doing it this way is that, okay, maybe this is going to cost 100 to 150,000. Okay, what else could 100 to 150,000 be invested in? We have a lot of things on our list that could use money. And is this going to achieve more than something else?
So when you say like 150,000, where like, how are you?
I'm just looking at that Provincetown chart and saying, okay, well, let's say this ends up costing the town 100 to 150,000.
Yeah,
okay,
but how many
well,
units are you getting from that? Yeah.
Okay, well, 150,000.
Yeah.
It's a housing guru. 150,000 would get us, this and that, and
I mean, I think that kind of calculus gets you always into trouble. What I think this has that some of the other things doesn't is that it gets the regular town people involved, right? So the regular homeowner involved.
I don't understand though that, Jeremy, when you said this calculus gets you in trouble, what do you mean by that?
Because it's always going to go towards big development, right? It's always going to go towards like 100 Bridge or South Main, right? You're going to get
if those are the things that have the biggest payoff for our dollars, what's wrong with that?
Because you get eventually all of the affordable housing. It's not scattered. So what Construct is going to do with theirs, I mean, it's
why if we can get 20 affordable units with us, that are together versus 10 that are scattered, which would be better?
I think the 10 that are scattered in the long run are going to be better.
Why is scattered better than?
Because it's better because affordable housing is only, well, I mean, this is not really this, but affordable housing is like having affordable housing is not the solution, right? The solution is that people that rent affordable housing eventually don't need affordable housing. That's the solution. And so when you have scattered site, it's more likely, right, that's what you're going to get. I mean, we can talk about this all day, but when you group a bunch of people this is not the place for this kind of discussion.
Well, it actually absolutely is the place for this discussion, because a lot of the fears about people living together, I mean, it seems that harkens back to Section 8 housing in the middle of Philadelphia. Okay, put a bunch of poor people together, and what do you get? That's what that seems to be the argument. And to me, affordable housing, we're not talking about poverty housing. We're talking about housing that's affordable.
I know, but you're putting a top end on what that is. And so you know what you see, right? And so if you see that, then that's what you know, right? And so part of like the work in part of the work in equity and all of that, it's like, it's like when that's all that's what you're comfortable with. Okay. And but I don't know.
I don't know, Jeremy. I lived in apartments for 10 years when we were first married, and it's an apartment.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, the balance is great. So, we're very, very lucky to have the CDC and Construct and.
Yeah, but Jeremy's arguing.
I think it's all kind of a balance. So
Jeremy's arguing that we should not do a cost comparison to the different initiatives.
I don't know if that's, I think that's okay, but I don't think that should be the sell. I don't think the sell should be, let's get as much as we can for what we pay.
No. I mean, I think for those questions that come up,
because
know,
if we
I think
look
it's
at that, if
helpful.
we look at that for where we've been putting the CPA funds, it would be very interesting how much we're giving who for what we're getting.
Okay. So,
And I don't know if we want to do that necessarily. I
Jeremy,
mean, I think, I mean, so what this does is when you put it in the hands of individual homeowners, it's like, so now individual homeowners can do something to address the problem of the lack of affordable housing. To me, that's powerful. It's more powerful than the one unit it creates, right?
no, it's not. It's one unit.
But what do you mean it's one unit? It's like, so people feel like powerless. Well, you know, I'm not a developer, so I can't do anything about it. But yeah, you can. You know, we have our zoning in town is set up this way, right? So you have a piece of property, you can have 3 units on that property, right? You live in 1 unit, you could create 2 affordable units, right? But if an individual doesn't feel empowered to do that, because any sort of subsidy they get is going to be measured against the subsidy that some developer who's building 25 units or 50 units, it's never going to work. We're never going to give them a subsidy.
I mean, that's
okay. So
That's a
let's,
struggle.
can we move this on a little bit? I mean, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
the wonderful thing about this group is that we have various ways to address housing. So we have a scattered approach, and we also have, you know, working in bigger developments. So I think, you know, having the ability to know that we have many paths to move forward is valuable. So so what I see that we have one hand up, and what I'm going to ask you guys, if we could agree for you to send notes about this. And are you happy enough bringing this forward to the select board as a proposal from the housing subcommittee?
Yes.
We don't, okay. So,
Yes.
so if you can, you know, you have the PDF with you, and if you can jot some notes and send them to me separately. And if I have time, I will, you know, have another draft for our next meeting. And what I hope to do is be able to present the other proposal that's on the housing plan that was actually on the agenda, but we're not going to have time to get to it, which is item number 20, which is the real estate transfer fee. Now, this is a bit more prickly, and there's a lot of calculation involved. I've been working really hard with Ross getting some data. So this is going to take a little bit more time, but I'll put something similar what I did with this, you know, just real basic points, go through the basics and give some reference. There are more references I can give in terms of what other municipalities are behind this proposal. So for the next meeting, I will have hopefully a draft of that proposal to show you. And if I have time, you know, I can take your notes and incorporate them. And this is all, you know, moving towards having, you know, at least one thing, because we know tonight's going to go in front of the select board, and possibly 2. And I believe that Vivian will be coming along on the next meeting, if we have time, to talk about some of the proposals for senior tax deferral. So that was kind of grouped in, you know, senior tax relief proposals.
Yeah.
That's 19. So if, you know, if we can't get everything together, you know, at the next meeting, which could be a possibility, it doesn't mean that we're not going to recognize the senior tax relief. It just means in this section, to get everything, you know, prepared for the select board meeting, we might have to have, like, you know, 2 meetings. But you know, obviously the goal is to try to get as many before the select board in a timely fashion as possible, so we can start the ball rolling. Does that sound good with you guys?
Yes.
Okay, so I see, so
Lee, I just have one
yeah.
quick question.
Yeah.
So the real estate transfer fee, is that paid for by the buyer or the seller?
It can be either or. So there's some municipalities that have the buyer, some have the seller, some have both.
Okay.
So the way that I was going to frame it is make it really open-ended, and I mean, this is one that's a really good example of needing healthy debate. And,
Yeah.
public forum, there's going to be obviously people behind it, people not behind it. And, I don't want to be in a position to say, this is how it should be. So what my intention is just to make people aware that it exists and to show you a couple ways that municipalities have addressed it. So, yeah. Okay.
And that one, I think, is really powerful, the way you presented it before with the possible revenue.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah,
like, whoa.
exactly. So that's what I've been working on. I have this big spreadsheet and numbers is not my forte.
Yeah.
Although I was on the finance committee, so don't let anyone not know that. But so I have a whole a whole spreadsheet of all the properties and the sales and the median and what the scenario looks like. So yeah, so that's what I'll be hopefully presenting next time. So if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to move on to citizens speak. And I see Vivian. Vivian, I'm gonna allow you to talk. If you could just keep it pretty short because we are over our time. Okay, Vivian. Hello.
I had first of all, your proposal based on the Provincetown example, I don't have an opinion on it one way or another. I mean, it's just new to me and I'd have to learn more about it. But what I do have is a couple of questions, which I think could be relevant to the way you present this and some questions that you might expect when you present it to, to the select board and the public. First question is, do you know how many people are in the staff of the assessor's office in Provincetown? Because this does look like it's quite a process to review. As you know, I'm proposing a senior tax deferral, which also has a process to it, but it's an extremely simple 3-page application. And Ross could probably tell you that that's much easier than keeping track of all these rental calculations. So how many people are in their assessor's office or another office that's charged with doing this type of background research, which is necessary to make this program fair and equitable, to make sure that people get what they deserve, so to speak, in terms of the tax exemption. So that's my first question. And my second question is, have you looked into other comparisons between the towns? For example, in their fiscal 2023, their tax rate in Provincetown is $5.98 for residential tax rate. And that's they have a different commercial and industrial personal property tax rate, which is actually less. It's $5.70, and that's compared to ours, which is $14, and I don't remember the change. It's a single rate in town. So they are in a different situation, and also to compare their tax base, even though their population is less than half of ours, I think, in terms of full-time residents, the total residential property in Provincetown is close to $4 billion, whereas in Great Barrington, it's about $1.5 billion. So they are working from many advantages, shall we say, in terms of what's going on with their total valuations and their tax rates. And I think it's important to look at the context. I'm not saying that this wouldn't be successful in Great Barrington, but I think these are factors that we need to look at and not just look at the as if we're comparing apples with apples.
Thank you, Vivian. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is an example of, wouldn't it be nice to have someone doing this, this research? You make really good points. I don't have the time or wherewithal to do this, but obviously if it moves to a point that it does get to the select board and it moves into a public forum, I think those are very valid questions. So thank you. Michael.
But so what is their, I mean, I wonder just their bottom revenue though, because if their tax rate is so low, but their property values are so high, are their tax bills similar? right? So, I mean, if you're timesing $5.98, you know, on a $4 million house versus a $1 million house, then, you know, our tax rate is lower, but, you know, if the house is similar.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I guess,
Okay, but
Yeah.
I think those are examples of things.
but
that we
it's,
can
I mean,
look
it's a good thing because it's the very thing people are going to bring up.
okay, I'm gonna let Michael Wise talk and then we'll wrap it up. Michael, hey. Hey, Michael.
Very quickly, on the special legislation front, to the extent that you're copying what Provincetown is, a Wellesley or Wellfleet, anyway, what other towns are doing, I'm guessing it'll be fairly quick at the legislature. It will have to be, of course, in real legislative language and formal.
Yeah.
On the Provincetown parallel, there are a lot of other things different about Provincetown, one of them being that they also have the residential exemption in place. And I'm looking at their website, they have 3 people in the assessor's office. But the relevant thing is the number of people who are taking advantage of it. I
Yep.
found it interesting that it took a while to reach a sort of a plateau at around 100 and some, 120, 30 units. I'm guessing that the demand will be higher here, and we're twice as large. So you might be thinking maybe 350, 400 people might try to take advantage of it. It might have enough of an effect on the overall tax bills to make that adjustment explicit.
Super.
You're taking that much out of the tax base, which means the rates will go up for others who are left. It will be only a couple of percent, but honesty and presentation would include that.
Yeah.
Okay.
My thoughts.
Yeah, and for, you know, Vivian and Michael, I welcome, you know, your comments. I could send you a PDF of the presentation, and I value your comments. So, you know, send what you think and I will
Yeah.
work that into the presentation. So thank you. Vivian, can you keep it short? I think you're probably gonna answer. Let me just unmute you. Just real quickly, Vivian, and then we'll wrap it up for tonight. Vivian, you're okay?
She may not have lowered her hand.
Oh, okay. Asked to unmute.
No, I'm raising it again.
Oh,
Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. I just wanted to quickly respond to Jeremy's observation that yes, their taxes are much less than ours per unit. When I last looked into this about a year ago, a house that was valued at $500,000 was paying something like $3,000 a year in property taxes, and in our town it's more like $7,000. So. Yeah, quite a difference for the individual homeowner.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we got dueling. Michael, did you want to speak again?
Only to point
Was
out that
that-
the one reason.
Yeah.
One reason why the taxes for residents are low in Provincetown is that the residential exemption makes them high for all those second homes out there.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much. All righty. So let's see. Anyone on the subcommittee want to say some last words? Some parting wishes?
move to adjourn.
Okay, so real quick, so we're okay.
Wait, the meeting dates, right?
Yeah, you have, it's on the agenda.
Yeah, so are we gonna,
That's fine with you guys, right? I don't have it in front of me, but you see the agenda. What is it? Does anyone have that in front of you?
February 8th at 5:30.
February 8th at 5:30. Does that still work for you guys?
Mhm.
Okay, and thank you so much. Move any second?
Oh, I'm sorry, Lee, do you know around what time we would be in the, where we would be in the select board's agenda?
I don't know.
Okay, and what time does that meeting start?
It's at 6.
Are they 6? Okay.
So. Yeah, so ideally, next meeting, we'd like to kind of nail down, this one that we agreed on. And, I'll do what I can to at least get the other proposal in front of you. And it could at least be a door opening. Like if we say, hey, this is worth bringing to the select board for, further discussion, maybe we can include that in that presentation. And, obviously anything else, but that, we're just trying to keep the door open and say, hey, we are working and, this is the beginning of many proposals. So that's the thought. Okay, so move to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, Malcolm,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Hi.
and me. Yay. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
see you later. Bye.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Malcolm.
See you, Jeremy. See you.